this might be a tough decision right now.
My
but
team
I'm
did
not just
absolutely garbage.
NFL games that were like,
Right.
whoa.
I actually don't
Had
understand.
a lot of mixed feelings. Welcome, Disgruntled. We have another guest here on the Legal Domains. Hey guys, welcome to another bedroom podcast. I think this is like the last 4 out of 5 podcasts I have done it in here. Maybe not that much, but I haven't counted. But thank you to Alban Brook. I think that's how you pronounce it. Let me just go trust Google. Let's go see how to pronounce his name so I don't look like a dumbass. How to pronounce Alban. Oh, I forgot I had headphones in. Albin. Okay, thank you to Alban Brook, who made podcast topics, 101 ideas for things to talk about. And this is a recent website that he just posted, which is surprising because you would think that there would be thousands of ideas or topics already produced, so why make another one? But if you scroll down a little bit on the same website, I'll probably link the website URL in the bottom, but if you go down all the way down to 23 wild animals, his description is similarly, if you're passionate about animals, make a podcast giving facts about wild animals and where to find them, interview people who have worked with wildlife and have them tell their stories. So 1, I know a little bit about wild animals. I lived in the woods. 2, I don't know anyone who works with wildlife for a living. So I'm going to cross that off, and I can't get anyone this last minute because the podcast goes out tomorrow and I have to work at 5 to 1 a.m., 5 p.m. to 1 a.m. So the likelihood of me getting a wildlife expert within a couple hours and having them on, or within an hour, is probably slim. So I'm just going to be talking about my experience with wildlife. And yeah, I'm just stalling at this moment. I've stalled for 2.5 minutes, but I guess that's the majority of the time that you see in this podcast. It's just me stalling and filling up time until it hits that 30-minute mark, or at least the last few ones. Not so much of the Titus and I's podcast or when I actually interview people, but with these short, quick ones, I'm doing a lot of stalling. And right now I'm just putting lotion on my tattoo, so that is why I'm a little distracted right now. I just forgot to do it earlier, but let's get right into it. So 18 years of my life, 17 years, 17 years of my life I have lived in the woods. 17 or 18 years of my life I have lived in the woods, and I lived in like a development in the woods, so it wasn't like I had a house to myself, or had a house and then hundreds of acres around it and basically in the middle of nowhere. Well, I was technically in the middle of nowhere because we didn't have any service or good service, so we had to buy like one of those service boxes to actually get good service where I lived. But by all means, we didn't live in the middle of nowhere. If you've seen my earliest videos, you would be able to see my development. I did a GoPro video with kids exploring with one of my friends in the neighborhood, so if you want to see what my neighborhood looks like, go find the playlist. I have it in a playlist. It's called Kids Exploring, and I forget what episode it is, but I GoPro'd my entire neighborhood. And so if you want to see what my neighborhood looked like, go check that video out. But by all means, we weren't surrounded by woods, but we were in the woods. Like, there was hundreds of acres around us, but like we were in a development within the woods, and like my school was nearby, etc., etc. A normal wooded area place that I lived in. But like we had a trail right behind our house, not right behind, but it was like a block, if you want to use city terms, like a block down, I guess. But it was a couple streets down, and it was called Trout Run. So we had that hiking trail was about two or 3 miles, maybe a little bit longer. 5 miles max, I would say. Between 3 to 5 miles. I can't really give an exact estimate because I never tracked it myself, or I never like tracked how long it was, but it was a decent hiking trail where you could hike for a little while and still be satisfied. You could hike for like an hour or two, maybe an hour to the end of the trail, an hour back. So it was a decent sized trail, but that's where I used to go all the time to hike. And there was a creek that ran through, and there was a swimming hole. So basically it connected. There was a trail. You had to go down a huge hill to get to this trout run, to get to the actual like governmental like route. Like there was track markers and everything, so it was like an actual like governmental like trail, or recognized by the government. But what wasn't recognized by the government was the trail that led into the trail, if that makes sense. So like in my neighborhood, we made a trail ourselves, or like the people that lived in my neighborhood forced a trail down. And I don't know who did it. I don't know if it was the actual government, but I think there was no trackers on this part, and you had to walk like half a mile about to get down to the actual trout run trail. But I think people in my neighborhood actually made that trail, so it was easier to get down to trout run. So that connected to my neighborhood, so all I had to do was like walk a few hundred yards, and I'll be in the woods and hiking down to the trail. That's a long-winded explanation, but there was another entrance on another road, and yeah, there is like a main road in which I took the road to school. Like that's the main road to get into my development, and I took that road all the time, and it was the road that the trail entrance is on, and that everyone uses, like the public uses, that doesn't live in the neighborhood, uses this entrance to get into the trail. And there's like a little parking lot and everything that you can park your car. But that like trail was about like a mile and a half, 2 miles away from my house, because from my house it took exactly, I did track this, it took exactly a mile to get from my house all the way to out of the actual development. That's kind of how big the development was, but it wasn't, yeah, that's kind of how big it was. It was just a lot of curves and turns and stuff. But, so it's about a mile, and you take a right, and you take another right, and you go down the road a little bit, and then that's the actual like public entrance in which the public uses to enter the trail, which is called Trout Run, like I said previously. But at this trail, you can park, and right when you get there, there's like a pretty decent size or little pocket where it's pretty deep, and a lot of people swim there, like little kids. It's not too deep, but it's like deep for little kids. Like they can jump in, and depending on the age, like it would be like chest high or whatever. It was like a couple feet deep, 2 or 3 feet deep. So it was swimmable for like kids, and even like adults too, like if they just wanted to sit down and like immerse themselves or whatever. But there's like a little pocket where you can like swimming hole. Most people just stay there to swim, and they bring their kids there, and they fit, and you can fish there as well. There's not too many big fish there, so I don't know how much luck you can get there fishing. I tried it once with my sister, and we had no luck at all. But then there's this tunnel that's like 20 to 30 yards in length, and the tunnel was cutting through like this hill. So basically there was a hill, pocket of water, and then you can go like underneath the bridge, or like through the bridge, or the tunnel, like through the tunnel. And what was above the tunnel was a railroad track. I forget what the railroad track was. It was like the PA railroad track or some shit, but like a part of it's like closed. It's not an active like train track, but apparently it goes from my little Peckway, like Lakewood development, and you can actually take it all the way to Philadelphia, and it ends somewhere in that region. But so it's a really long train track, and it closed down a while ago for unknown reasons. I can talk about that in another story. It's a pretty cool area to hike in, but basically this tunnel, you go underneath the tunnel and you're going underneath a train track, a massive train track that's not active. So like I used to play on this train track all the time with my friends, and I would hike it all the time with my family too. And basically, like, if you go underneath this tunnel, or like you go through this tunnel, and the creek goes through the tunnel as well, like which is pretty wide, not wide, like the water, it's at the widest point underneath this bridge, or underneath this tunnel, because it's the entire width of the tunnel. So you go underneath the tunnel and then you get on Trout Run. Like it takes like 100 yards and you're already at Trout Run, and you don't have to go down this massive hill like you do from the development. But so basically, like, that's kind of the idea of where I lived. Like, I had woods all around me, like very wooded area, but it wasn't like it was like a developed land. So I still had like wildlife. Like, we had deer coming through our yards, we had turkeys coming through our yard, snakes, box turtles, everything that you can think of, bugs, and we have like this huge fireplace. Again, I have a few videos up on my YouTube channel that are older, of like vlogs, mini vlogs and stuff. So if you want to get a better idea exactly what I'm talking about, it's all up on my channel. Kids Exploring is where you're going to find a majority of it, but Kai and Caleb Adventures, there's snippets. Oh, there's a Kai and Caleb adventure where you get a very good like sense of the idea of the land, or an idea of what I'm talking about. And so go check that episode out. And I do have a vlog, I think it's like my 4th or 5th vlog, where I go exploring. So yeah, you can get a better idea of what it looked like through that vlog. So there's a few videos up on my channel to get a better idea of it. But yeah, I was going to this trail like when I was very young with like my mom and my parents and stuff, and my sister too, like, and my friends. Like, it was a trail where like I could go. I was going down this trail when I was like 7 or 8 by myself with like a couple of other friends, and just like exploring that area of the woods, because it was like a very safe area, and like I knew my way around it. And like I know that place like the back of my hand. So when I hiked there, like, it was just a really cool place. So that's kind of like the woodsy aspect of it. But when I was little, or like so that being said, throughout my life I had a lot of wildlife experience growing up, being in the woods and stuff, being with creatures. When I was little, and throughout my life, honestly, like even a few years ago, like I would try to find snakes underneath rocks. We had like a lot of like bigger rocks around where I live, and I'll just like lift them up to see what kind of like wildlife I would see. I was mainly looking for snakes, but like I would find like roly-polies, I would find like normal like insects there, like anthills, there's worms, there's crickets, just normal like insects underneath rocks. That's the majority of what you found underneath rocks. When you picked it up, you would find at least a few insects, like if it was a worm or roly-poly, but you'd find the occasional salamander, which was really cool. Salamanders are more common to find than snakes when I was picking up or like lifting up rocks to find snakes. But there was a few instances where I did in fact find like a baby gardener snake, a baby yellow ring-necked snake. They have like the yellow ring-necked snakes are my favorite snakes that I found, because they don't get very big. They don't get very big at all. I think the biggest that I found was like probably like that big, and that's probably the biggest that they get. I haven't found anything bigger, so I don't know if they get bigger than that. But you find like a lot of babies. I took a lot of pictures. Like I found a baby like that was like that big, like on the side of the road when I was coming home the one day, and he was just like trying to get to the grass, and they like wrap around your finger and stuff, and they're really cute. They don't bite at all. I mean, they might try to like nip at you or like try to strike originally, but if you like hold them for a little while, then they're like they get very nice very easily. And if they do bite you, it's a nip. I got bitten by like a couple of them before, and like there was no blood, there was no marks even when I got bit by like these little yellow ring-head snakes, and they're not venomous at all, so you have nothing to worry about. But they're very, very nice when you hold them and let them know like nothing's gonna happen to them. Like it's 5 seconds. Comparatively to gardener snakes. Gardener snakes are worse to deal with. I never got bitten by a gardener snake before because I was always safe about it. But even when I was like 9 or 10, I always tried to pick up as many snakes as I can with like my hands, and I had like this snake hook, and where it made it easier to like capture snakes. And like there's this time where I found like 3 baby gardener snakes, and I put it in the bin, and I was trying to keep them as pets, but they all escaped because I didn't like put a lid over them. So I guess they just found a way out, or like a hawk or animal like ate them, which I kind of feel bad. But they lasted like 2 or 3 days in this bin, and I would feed them like crickets, and they would eat them and stuff, which was pretty cool and satisfying to see. But that didn't last long. But gardener snakes, they smell like ass. And the biggest gardener snake that I like held and actually like held for a little bit, I didn't like hold it. I kind of just picked it up by its tail and like arm's distance, because I think I was like 14 or 15, so I was like didn't know too much of how to handle a big snake like that, because normally when I picked up snakes when I was younger, it was just like normally like the biggest that I would get was like this big at most. So that's a very small size, but the biggest that I picked up was like 3 feet long. It was like gigantic. It was like it was a thick boy. But my dad and I used to have a pond in my backyard, but we converted it into a fireplace because it was just too much maintenance to keep up with. Because with this pond, you have to like, we didn't properly like take care of it though. Like we didn't have a net over it. Well, we did at one moment in time, but we tried it for like one summer to see what would happen, but too many things got caught up into it. Like there's this one story, Mom, you probably remember it, but we had this net, and things kept getting stuck into this net. And this one time, this gardener snake that was a baby, it was probably like this big in length. Very interesting story. So I walk out because I was like exploring, and then I was just looking at the pond, and I saw this snake, and I was like, oh crap, it's stuck. So I like ran inside. I was like, Mom, there's like the snake stuck in the net outside. And so she came out, and she was like, oh crap, okay, let's try to free it. So like she went inside, she got a pair of scissors, like cut it loose, and then we were trying to get the net off, but we couldn't. It wasn't like a big piece, it was a small enough piece, so we were like, oh crap, we can't like get this off because it was like trying to bite us. And it was kind of hard. We didn't want to like injure the snake, and the snake was still alive and like moving very well. It wasn't like a big piece at all. So we were like, okay, like it's a friendly snake, but we just don't want to like cut it and have it die. So we just let it go. Like I was holding it for a little while, and so we let it go. And then like I think a couple years later, a year later or something, we see it on our backyard like porch area, and we just see it. It comes straight up to the entrance of like the backyard. And I was like, I look and I saw it. I was like, Mom, the snake's back. And you could see the little like net thing that was still around his neck, but he got in like a foot bigger. He got like pretty big. I was like, Mom, like it's back. I don't know if I like held it or at all, but I definitely like remembered us, and it was like very friendly. It, like didn't try to bite us at all, which was crazy. That's one of the wildest wildlife experiences that I had there. But what was I saying? Okay, the pond. So we tried the net for like a year, but we just decided that we didn't want to hurt any more like wildlife, so we just went away with the net, and therefore a lot of leaves got into the pond, so we would have to every spring, once like it started to get warm, once it was done freezing over, we would have to clean out the pond, like drain it, clean out the pond, and then put more water into it. Like we had a tarp underneath of it, and it was an entire day process. It took not even an entire day, it was probably like a weekend's worth of work. And I honestly liked doing it, but again, I was very young, so hold on. Excuse me. I was very young at the time, so I wasn't doing majority of the work. I was just helping here and there as much as a 10-year-old can do. So I was just trying to help my dad as much as possible, but I love, that was one of my enjoyable moments growing up, was cleaning the pond, because like there was, you just find a shit ton of like wild like animals and creatures when we were like doing like cleaning it up, because there would be like stuff in the water and stuff, like like frogs, like frog eggs and stuff. Of course, like we would try to do it before like the frogs laid their eggs, but sometimes we just couldn't. Oh, the snakes. Like I was trying to remember why I brought up the pond, but so there was this one time when we were cleaning it up and we found this massive snake, because basically there is this like, we had I think rocks around the pond, and we would like shift it and move it, and we would like pick up some rocks because you had to clean out the pond. So like when we were like lifting up rocks and just like through like leaves and just around like a little ecosystem around this pond, and this like giant snake came out of nowhere, and it was 3 feet long, and so I carefully like picked it up. I was 14 or 15. I wasn't young at all, and we had like a wheelbarrow, and there was nothing in the wheelbarrow yet, so we grabbed this giant ass snake, or I did, and I put it in the wheelbarrow, and it was like trying to bite me and stuff, but like I put it in the wheelbarrow, like I knew how to handle like snakes that big at that time. There's like a way, like you grab it by the tail, and they can't really bite you if you like hold it out. So I put it in the wheelbarrow, and that was like the biggest snake that I like handled. But we also had like black snakes as well. Not too many. I don't think saw any on my yard particularly, but like around the neighborhood, when I took walks around the neighborhood, like I saw a couple of them. Like I saw probably a 4-foot black snake that was like massive. Like a 2 to 3 foot garter snake is not comparable to a like 2 or 3 foot like black snake, because black snakes get a lot thicker than gardener snakes, and they're a lot more aggressive. They're a lot like bigger, but this black snake was like 4 or 5 feet big. I was like, holy crap, that's a big ass like black snake. I didn't try to touch it, but I was like driving one day, and I was driving. I like pulled my car off to the side. I got a couple pictures, but that's the biggest snake that I saw, at least in the wooded area. And then again, back to the deer, like it was kind of annoying. There's this annoying because like we had plants in the front of our yard, and deer would come up and eat them. And there's like this one way where you can like spray milk or something, or it's milk, and it would like deter them from eating your plants, which is wild. But I think the time that I found the gardener snake, I think we were getting rid of the pond to convert it into a fireplace. So like we were lifting up a bunch of stones, and we had to like reformat above the pond, because like we had this like big gray wall in our backyard that basically, so it was our backyard, and then there's an elevated area that was like a hill that were just an elevation in land. So basically this gray wall was keeping that hill in place, so like when rain came, like the hill didn't just like collapse, and it just kept it nice and neat. It's probably like the hill was probably like 10 feet at most at the highest point, but it like kind of sloped down and like leveled off. But this wall, we had like a fancy thing above the pond, like it was a wall and then another wall above it. So we had to fix that, because that kind of got deteriorated over the years, and we didn't really like take care of that well. So that's why we found the big gardener snake there. And so yeah, we basically, when we converted the pond into a fireplace, we basically just took everything out, took the tarp out, took like all the plants out that we had in there, and then so it was basically this hole, and then my dad and I made this like square out of like bricks and like those big gray square cinder blocks. Not cinder blocks, but like gray square like bricks things. That's not a brick, but it's like 2 bricks in one. And he made a square, and then the square didn't like take over the entire pond, because it was a square instead of a circle. So like there was probably 2 or 3 feet around it where it was just dirt, and then the fireplace. So eventually we filled up like around it, and put like slabs of stone around it and made it really nice, and we made like two benches out of it, and we made the place very nice to have fires in, which was very cool experience. And then we, like, when we were doing that, or like when we were like changing the pond or fixing the pond earlier than that, like the one time we found like a giant ass, like, I think Japanese salamander. It was like that big, and we kept it for a couple days, I believe, which was really cool. That was a giant salamander. And then there'd be like these little orange salamanders that I would find. I don't know, like I don't know, I think they got into like those bigger Japanese salamanders, but it was like orange with like black polka dots. I never seen like them big. I always find like little baby ones. So those were cute. I think I tried keeping one as a pet as well. I try to keep a lot of them as pets. Most of the time I would let them go because I was like, oh, I can't really keep this as a pet. So I don't really know how to take care of it. And then, so that's kind of the pond area of my experience. But when we converted the pond into a campfire area, we had like two campfire like places, and the other one was like kind of upper into a hilly area. Like we like made a path up to it. It's just like a small, like maybe a foot or two deep, and we had like rocks around it. It's one of the areas where I lifted up and looked to see if there's any creatures underneath of it. And yeah, that was really cool. And 1 year, so the legend of like the big frog as well. So there's this big ass frog that lived in our pond, and it was massive. It was probably like this big, like that wide. It was ginormous, and it was always there every year. Like you would find it, you would see it. But my next door neighbor and I, we were playing around the pond, and it was winter, so it was iced over. And when it was iced over, like you could like run across it, you could stand on it, and you could jump on it. It was like that thick of ice. But the one day we thought it was like that thick of ice where you could just stand on it. There was an area where we were standing on, like sliding back and forth. So like we just didn't really think any of it. And then we were like, all right, what if we tried to crack the pond? So we would like throw rocks on it and throw like these rock slabs that were broken, because we had like an area, the woods, where there was a crap ton of like, there was a crap ton, like we had a little area where we kind of stored the slabs, extra slabs, because in the front of the house, we had like these stone slabs. That was a path that led from the driveway around to the front entrance of the house and kind of looped around the other side of the house and kind of tapered off. But then eventually we made it into a sidewalk, or we hired someone to like put cement down and make it an actual sidewalk. And so we had all this like extra stone slabs, so we just put it like in a little corner of the woods. That's kind of like our storage for the stone slabs, because we could use it for other things, like we did for around the campfire. The replacement for the pond. But so we went over to that location, found like broken up pieces or small pieces, and we were like trying to do it, like trying to break it. And my friend next door, he managed to break through it, and it went through like the pond, and it like slowed down. I don't think it made a hole in the pond or in the tarp, but it managed to slice open this huge ass frog that's been there for like 4 or 5 years at least, and it sliced it open and killed it. And we didn't realize for another like 2 or 3 months until like my dad and I like cleaned the pond, and we found like a severed like frog. It was like cut in half. It was cleanly. I'm like, oh crap. I don't think, and my dad was like, how did this happen? Because like that's not naturally going to happen. Like a frog's not going to be cut in half. I'm like, oh. And I told him, and we just started laughing. He was like, just don't do that again. But yeah, I think this is going to be part 1 of my wildlife story, because I have a bunch to say, but I want to keep this under 30 minutes. I have like 15 seconds. So part 2 is coming out tomorrow or next week. So yeah, it's more content. See you next weekend, and bye.